Hey everyone, welcome to our deep dive.
Yeah.
And today we are talking about the compound effect by Darren Hardy. Have you ever felt like you're putting in the work, but those big wins just seem kind of out of reach?
Yeah.
Well, this deep dive is all about harnessing the power of taking those small, consistent actions, but over time to create massive life-changing results. No magic wands or anything.
Right.
Just the power of smart choices day after day.
What I think is so fascinating about this idea of the compound effect is that it's not some mystical force.
Yeah.
You know, it's a principle that's operating all the time, just like gravity.
Okay.
It's constantly shaping our lives. And the key is to figure out how to make it work for us, not against us.
Okay.
And the book uses this clever analogy of comparing it to the law of gravity. Like it's always present,
Right.
whether we acknowledge it or not.
Okay, so how does this actually play out in real life?
Okay.
Are there any examples?
Yeah. So the book uses this example of these three friends,
Okay.
Brad, Larry, and Scott.
Yeah.
So Brad is content with kind of the status quo. He's
Right.
not really making any major changes.
Mm.
Larry, on the other hand, is like gung-ho at first.
Okay.
Makes some big changes, but can't quite sustain them.
Okay.
And then there's Scott.
Okay.
Now, Scott makes these tiny, almost unnoticeable positive changes to his routine.
Okay.
So we're not talking about, like overhauling his entire life.
Right.
Just these subtle tweaks.
Okay.
Like maybe adding an extra vegetable to his plate.
Okay.
Or taking the stairs instead of the elevator.
Okay, so no crazy diets.
Exactly.
Or marathon training sessions.
No, it's really about the long game here.
Gotcha.
And so here's where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
After about 2.5 years, Brad's the same. Larry's back to his old ways.
Mm-hmm.
But Scott has lost 33 pounds.
Wow.
And it just shows that...
Pretty impressive.
Yeah.
33 pounds?
Yeah. And it just shows
That's not old.
it's the consistency of those small actions over time that yield the remarkable results.
That's a great point. And I think it's really easy to fall into this trap of thinking we need these massive sweeping changes, to see real progress.
Right.
But as you're saying, it's often these tiny tweaks that can snowball into something way bigger.
Absolutely. And it's not just about weight loss.
Okay.
It's about how these seemingly insignificant actions can create a ripple effect on all these other areas of our lives.
Okay.
And the book gives an example of Brad,
Okay.
who really loved indulging in rich foods.
Okay.
And on the surface...
Sounds harmless enough.
Right. Sounds harmless. But this actually led to a domino effect.
Okay.
It started with him feeling really sluggish,
Okay.
which then impacted his work, made him more irritable,
Yeah.
which then strained his relationship with his wife.
Wow.
And ultimately, he just ended up feeling really unhappy and unfulfilled.
So it's like one bad habit leading to this whole cascade of negative consequences.
Exactly.
Like a chain reaction.
And that's a really powerful realization, is that those seemingly insignificant choices can have these far-reaching consequences,
Yeah.
often in ways we don't even realize.
It makes you think, how do we harness this to our advantage?
Yeah, how do we make the compound effect work for us?
Right. What's the secret sauce?
Well, I think one of the keys is understanding the importance of taking 100% responsibility for our lives.
Okay.
It's about recognizing that we actually have the power to choose our responses and shape our own destinies.
So instead of blaming outside factors like traffic or the weather,
Exactly.
it's about realizing that we are in the driver's seat.
Yeah.
If I'm late, it's on me to leave earlier.
Exactly. And even when things feel completely out of our control, we can control our reactions and responses.
Okay, that's a good point.
And another powerful tool is this idea of tracking.
Okay.
It sounds really simple,
Okay.
even kind of mundane, but it's about meticulously monitoring even the seemingly insignificant areas of our life to increase our self-awareness.
So it's what gets measured gets managed.
Precisely.
All right.
And the book tells this really relatable story about Darren's assistant, Kathleen.
Correct.
And Kathleen was struggling to save money.
Okay.
And to kind of help her get on track, Darren suggested she start tracking her expenses.
Okay.
And then start small, really small.
Okay.
Saving just 1% of her income.
Wow. So it seemed almost insignificant.
It did, but that tiny step had a huge impact.
That's amazing. And it worked.
It did.
It did.
That small shift in her mindset and behavior sparked this chain reaction.
Wow.
And she went from struggling to save to consistently putting money aside.
Okay.
And ultimately, she became incredibly financially secure, earning over $250,000 a year.
Wow.
And it just goes to show the transformative power of those small, consistent actions.
That's incredible, just from tracking her spending and starting with 1%.
It's amazing, right?
Wow. Kathleen's story is so inspiring. It really highlights how those small steps can lead to massive results over time.
Yeah.
It's like that saying, mighty oaks from little acorns grow.
Absolutely. And, while this whole concept of consistency is super powerful, it does make you wonder, like, how do we ensure that those small changes we make actually turn into those lasting habits?
Yeah, that's a great question, because it's one thing to make a change for a few days or even a few weeks.
Right.
But how do we actually make it stick for the long haul?
Well, the book actually digs into the science behind habit formation.
Okay.
And it's really fascinating when you think about it.
Okay.
If we had to consciously think about every single step of our daily routine, like brushing our teeth,
Yeah.
or driving to work, or, making coffee,
Yeah.
we would be mentally exhausted
Totally.
before we even get to the important stuff.
It'd be like our brains were on overload.
Exactly.
I don't even think about
Yeah.
brushing my teeth anymore.
Right.
It's just something I do automatically.
And that's the beauty of habits.
Yeah.
Our brains are wired to turn repeated actions into these automatic routines.
Okay.
So it's like our brains are actually creating shortcuts, which frees up our mental bandwidth for other things.
Okay.
But the thing is,
Yeah.
this whole autopilot mode only works if we've cultivated good habits.
Right. Because if we're on autopilot doing the wrong things,
Exactly.
then it's not really serving us.
And the book talks about this in the context of exercise.
Okay.
So if you're someone who exercises regularly, you've likely created all these healthy habits around your workouts, like
yeah.
getting to the gym,
Mm-hmm.
choosing a workout,
Yeah.
warming up.
Yeah.
And all of these actions have become almost automatic over time.
Right. It's like you don't even think about it. You just do it.
Exactly.
And what I find so fascinating about this whole thing with habits is that even though most of our habits are formed unconsciously,
Right.
like through observation or reacting to our environment, we actually have the power to consciously change them.
We do.
So because we learned those habits, we can unlearn them too.
We can, and that's a game changer.
Yeah, that's huge.
It is a game changer.
Okay.
But there is a catch.
Okay.
Our brains are kind of hardwired to seek that instant gratification.
Oof. Tell me about it.
Right.
It's like, I know that eating that whole pizza is not going to help me reach my health goals.
Right.
But sometimes it just looks so good.
And the book uses this really powerful analogy to illustrate this point.
Okay.
Imagine there's a plank of wood 30 feet long,
Okay.
and I offered you $20 to walk across it.
Yeah, totally. Where do I sign up?
Right. Easy money.
Yeah.
But what if that same plank was now a makeshift bridge
Okay.
between two 100-story buildings?
Okay.
Suddenly, $20 doesn't seem so appealing, does it?
No, I think I'd have to pass.
But what if your child was on that building and it was on fire?
Oh, gosh.
Would you walk across that plank to save them?
In a heartbeat.
Exactly. And it just illustrates that when the why
Yeah.
is strong enough, we're willing to overcome incredible obstacles
Yeah.
and face our deepest fears.
Wow, that's powerful.
It is. And so the question then becomes,
Yeah.
how do we tap into that really strong why when it comes to changing our habits?
Right, because we need a strong enough why to get us across that plank.
Exactly. And it starts with identifying what the book calls our fight.
Okay.
That burning desire,
Okay.
that thing we deeply crave or desperately want to avoid.
Gotcha.
And it has to be our own why.
Right.
Not our parents, not our partners, not society's expectations.
It has to be personal.
It has to be a deeply personal motivation
Yes, yeah.
that truly resonates with our core value.
So if my why is to prove a naysayer wrong, like an old boss who doubted me, that's okay?
Absolutely. As long as it's legal and moral, the source of your motivation is irrelevant.
Okay.
What matters is that it resonates deeply within you, providing that internal drive to push forward even when things get tough.
It's like they say, success is the best revenge.
Exactly. Now, in addition to that really strong why,
Okay.
we also need those clearly defined goals.
Okay.
And remember, the compound effect is always in motion, right?
Yeah.
It's constantly shaping our lives.
Right.
So without that clear direction,
Okay.
we're essentially just letting it steer us wherever it may.
So we become like a ship without a rudder,
Exactly.
just tossed about by the currents of life.
Goal setting is like having that rudder.
Okay.
It allows us to become the architects of our own lives.
Gotcha.
And this should encompass all areas of our life.
Okay.
Not just our careers or our finances.
I love that. What a more holistic approach.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's about that whole life success.
Exactly.
So how do we make sure our habits are actually aligned with this 360-degree view of success?
Well, the book suggests a habit assessment,
Okay.
which sounds a lot more intimidating than it actually is. The first step is to actually identify your top 3 life goals.
Got it.
So it could be anything from launching a business to, becoming fluent in a new language.
Okay, 3 goals. What's next?
And then here comes the honest self-reflection part.
Uh-oh.
You got to list every single bad habit that's hindering your progress in each area.
Okay.
And you really want to be brutally honest with yourself here.
So no sugarcoating allowed.
Exactly. If your actions contradict your words,
Yeah.
trust your actions.
Okay.
Like if you say you want to be healthier,
Yeah.
but you're constantly, reaching for those sugary drinks,
Right.
you've got to be honest about which behavior is actually winning out.
Honesty is the best policy.
Exactly. So once you've identified those bad habits,
Okay.
it's time to pinpoint the good ones that you need to adopt.
Okay, so we're identifying the habit heroes
Oh, exactly.
that we need to recruit
Yes.
and the habit villains that we need to show the door.
I love that. And that's where the rubber meets the road. But thankfully, the book provides some really practical advice.
Okay, good.
The first is to start small,
Okay.
because trying to overhaul everything overnight is a recipe for overwhelm and ultimately failure.
Yeah.
Remember, it's those tiny, almost effortless changes
Right.
repeated day after day
Yeah.
that yield the biggest impact over time.
So small changes.
Yes.
Big impact.
Exactly.
Got it.
Any examples?
Sure. Imagine you want to start flossing daily.
Okay.
Instead of keeping your floss hidden away in a drawer,
Right.
put it right next to your toothbrush.
Okay.
Or let's say you want to incorporate more vegetables into your diet.
Okay.
Prep them in advance
Mm-hmm.
and store them in those clear containers Yes. at eye level in your fridge.
So you can see them.
Exactly.
It's like you're setting yourself up for success
Exact.
before you even have to think about it.
It's all about removing those tiny obstacles
Yeah.
and creating those visual cues
Okay.
that nudge you towards those desired
I
behavior.
love. And another really effective strategy is what the book calls crowding out.
Crowding out. Okay.
And remember our example earlier
Yeah.
about the person who's glued to the news?
Oh, yeah. The one who is just consuming negativity
Yes.
for hours on end.
For hours.
Yeah. That one really resonated with me because I can definitely fall into that trap of getting sucked into the news cycle.
Right. And it's not about becoming uninformed,
Okay.
but it's about being mindful of how we consume information.
Right.
And so by crowding out those less than productive habits
Hmm.
with activities that align with our goals and bring us joy,
Okay.
we naturally reduce the space those negative habits used to occupy.
So it's like in that example, instead of passively watching the news,
Right.
it would be about replacing that time with something more enriching,
Exactly.
like spending time with loved ones,
Yes.
pursuing a hobby, or even just disconnecting for a bit
Yes.
and enjoying some quiet time.
Exactly.
So it's about being really intentional about how we spend our time and our energy
Yes.
and filling our lives with those activities that nourish our minds
Yes.
and move us closer to those goals.
Precisely.
I'm getting excited just thinking about it.
Me too.
Okay, so crowding out. What other game-changing tips does the book offer?
Well, another incredibly effective strategy is this idea of making a public declaration of your new habit.
Okay.
It's leveraging the power of accountability.
Oh, so it's like when a politician takes an oath of office,
Exactly.
they're making a promise in front of everyone.
Right.
And everyone's going to hold them accountable.
Exactly. So when you publicly commit to something,
Okay.
it just adds this extra layer of responsibility.
Right, because now it's not just you.
Exactly. You're not just letting yourself down.
Right, you're letting down everyone who's supporting you.
Exactly.
So if my goal is to finally stick to that regular exercise routine,
Yeah.
I should announce it to everyone I know.
Yes.
Like family, friends, even put it out there on social media.
The more people you tell, the better.
Okay.
It's like having this built-in support system.
Yeah.
A team of accountability partners.
Gotcha.
And don't underestimate the power of a little friendly competition.
Oh, I'm all about a little competition. I think I read about this in the book, too.
Yeah.
There was this company that used pedometers
Yes.
to create this step counting competition among their employees.
Exactly. It was this fun and engaging way
Yeah.
to encourage physical activity.
Right.
And the company divided their employees into teams,
Mhm.
and they would compete
Okay.
to see who could rack up the most steps.
And it worked.
And the results were remarkable.
Wow.
People who had never been particularly active before
Yeah.
were suddenly walking 4, 5, even 6 miles a day.
Wow. It's amazing what a little friendly competition can do.
I know, it's incredible.
But all this talk about, consistency
Right.
and accountability and habit change,
Yeah.
it does make you wonder, what happens when we inevitably face setbacks?
That's such a good point.
Because it's going to happen.
It is going to happen.
Yeah.
Setbacks are a part of life.
Yeah.
And I think the book does a really good job of reminding us that it's not about avoiding setbacks entirely,
Okay.
but it's about how we respond to them.
So it's not about being perfect.
No.
It's about being resilient.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's about acknowledging that setbacks are a natural part of the process
Right.
and viewing those setbacks as opportunities for growth and for learning.
So when we fall down, we have to get back up
Exactly.
and keep moving
The
forward.
key is to get back on track as quickly as possible. Dust yourself off
Yep.
and keep moving forward.
That's such a good point about setbacks. It's so easy to get discouraged when things get tough.
Yeah.
But like you said, it's not about avoiding them altogether. It's about how we respond to those setbacks and how we can use them as opportunities to learn and grow. I love that.
Absolutely. Resilience is key. It's really about reframing those setbacks as opportunities for learning and growth,
Yeah.
not failures.
So when we fall down, we have to get back up.
Exactly. And dust ourselves off.
Yeah.
Keep moving forward. And, the book also talks about the importance of pushing beyond our comfort zones.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that you hear a lot in this personal development space.
Yeah.
But it's crucial for activating this compound effect.
That's always been intriguing to me because there's definitely a certain allure to the familiar
Right.
and the comfortable.
Yeah,
But it's it's outside that comfort zone where all the magic really happens.
it is. And the book talks about this idea of the discomfort zone challenge, which is really about intentionally seeking out experiences
Okay.
that stretch us beyond our self-imposed limits.
So it could be anything from taking a public speaking class
Yes.
to learning a new language.
Anything that challenges us to grow and expand,
Okay.
to kind of push those boundaries.
So basically embracing those butterflies in our stomach
Yeah.
as a sign that we're on the right track.
Yes, that we're kind of pushing ourselves to become
Yeah.
better versions of ourselves.
I love that. So we're embracing the discomfort. We're pushing our boundaries. We're building resilience. What else can we do to really amplify this compound effect in our lives?
That's where this concept of expanded associations comes into play.
Okay, expanded associations. What is that?
It's about being really intentional about the company we keep.
Okay.
Because the people we surround ourselves with
Yeah.
have a profound impact
Okay.
on our thoughts, our beliefs,
Yeah.
and ultimately our results.
Right, like we were talking about earlier about crowding out those negative influences.
Exactly.
But this is about surrounding ourselves with more positive influences.
Yes. So it's about actively cultivating those relationships
Yeah.
with individuals who embody the qualities that we want to cultivate in ourselves.
So it's kind of like creating a personal board of advisors,
Yes.
of people who inspire us and challenge us and support us.
Yes.
So if my goal is to write a book, I should be connecting with other authors,
Yes.
maybe joining a writing group,
Yes.
even attending workshops and conferences.
Exactly. It's about surrounding ourselves with people who are already living the kind of life that we aspire to live.
Okay, so it's like creating that mastermind group for success.
Exactly.
Love it. Are there any practical tips for actually doing this?
Sure.
For creating these expanded associations? Because it sounds kind of intimidating, to be honest.
No, it doesn't have to be. Start by just thinking about the qualities that you admire in other people,
Okay.
and then just seek out those individuals.
Okay.
Join professional organizations, attend industry events, reach out to someone you admire for a virtual coffee chat.
Those are great tips. Okay, so we're being intentional about our habits and our mindsets,
Yes.
our associations. Any other game-changing insights from the compound effect
Yeah.
that we can put into action today?
I think the book also reminds us to celebrate our wins.
Ooh, I love celebrating wins.
Me too.
It's so important
Huge.
to acknowledge how far we've come.
And it's so easy to get caught up in the pursuit of our goals that we forget to acknowledge and appreciate the progress.
Right, we're so busy looking at the destination
Yeah.
that we forget to enjoy the journey.
Yes. So it's really about recognizing those small victories along the way, which reinforces those positive behaviors
Yeah.
and keeps us motivated to keep moving forward.
Okay.
And it doesn't have to be anything big or elaborate.
Okay.
Even just small gestures of self-acknowledgement can go a really long way.
Like giving ourselves a pat on the back
Yes.
for a job well done.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive.
We have.
The power of small choices, the science of habit formation, the importance of mindset, the impact of our environment, even some strategies for multiplying our results. As we start to wrap things up, what is one key takeaway you hope our listeners are walking away with today?
I think the most important takeaway is that the compound effect is always at work.
Yeah.
Whether we realize it or not, it's constantly shaping our lives.
Okay.
But by understanding this principle
Yeah.
and by taking conscious control of our choices,
Yeah,
We become the architects of our own destinies,
I love that.
creating the life that we want,
Yeah.
one small action at a time.
That's such a powerful reminder. We have so much more control over our lives than we often realize. So to our listeners, as you go about your day-to-day, ask yourself, what's one small change I can make that will set me on the path toward the life I want to create? Remember, even the tiniest actions repeated consistently over time can lead to extraordinary outcomes. Thanks so much for joining us for this deep dive into the compound effect. We'll see you next time.